This is my third guitar build, and before I decided to make it a video, I had already done a couple of steps. So you can see here the top is already thickness, the plates have been joined. So now I'm just cutting out the shape of the top, which is a modified OM. I took a Martin OM, which was basically the shape I built of my first guitar, and changed the design a little bit on the upper bout. I built my second guitar using this shape, and I did a Florentine cutaway. This build will not have the Florentine cutaway. If you want to see that build, you can watch that video. I'll put a link in the description. Here I'm just jointing the sides, cutting them to width, and thicknessing them. This is the bending machine from LMI. It's what I use to bend the sides. It works pretty well. The first guitar build I did, I bent the sides by hand, which was an interesting process. It took a lot longer. So there's the sides bent. Now I'm making the head block and the tail block. Here I'm just showing a brief snippet of how I'm getting the head block to match the shape of the form. And then I'm gluing up the tail block and head block here. It's a lot of clamps. They do kind of weigh down the sides, so I tried to use more smaller ones than big ones. In my second guitar build, I used too many big ones and it cracked the side. So now I'm just kind of doing the pre-tapering of the sides, the back side here, basically getting it down to the height of the head block, which I cut to a rough dimension, a little bit more than what the plans called for. To finish off the pre-radiusing, I'm just running them on the radius dish, which is called driving the bus. Here I'm installing kerfing. I've just got some clothespins with some rubber bands wrapped around them to give them a little bit more clamping power. So you can see here the scarf joint's already cut. I'm just truing up the face of the headstock and then cutting the neck to length. The piece that I cut off, the little small piece, will be made into the stacked heel. Here I'm cutting the truss rod slot. I'm using a StewMac hot rod truss rod. You can see that red one there. This is the third guitar I made, and it's the third kind of truss rod I've used. I'm just really trying to try out a lot of different things in my first few guitar builds. Here's where I'm gluing the stacked heel together. I took that little short piece that I cut off and cut it into 3 pieces. So now I've got the back, and I'm going to do the same thing I did to the top and the sides. I'm going to joint the side, make sure the seam is good between the 2 plates, and then glue them up here. I made this plate joining jig for my first guitar build, and it seems to work out pretty well. It uses some wedges, you can see here on the side, and it just kind of clamps the 2 pieces together. In order to keep the pieces from buckling, like you see there, I just place 2 planes on top to keep it weighted down. Here's just a shot of the glued together panel showing the joint there. Came out pretty good. And of course, got to cut the shape out of the back. Don't pay any attention to those Mickey Mouse pajama pants I'm wearing. Thicknessing it through the drum sander, which was an excellent addition to the shop. I'm having thicknessed the entire first guitar that I made by hand using scrapers and half of the second guitar build. This drum sander is awesome to have. It cuts out a lot of time. And there you saw me gluing on the back reinforcement strip. which just reinforces the joint between the two back plates. This is Sitka spruce, and I'm cutting out the pieces for the back braces. I'm just measuring out so that I can cut them each out to length. I'm just comparing them to the plans to make sure I cut them to the right length. I'm using the radius just to radius the bottom of them. Here you notice there was actually an error. I pre-scalloped the braces. There you can see it's already scalloped on the bandsaw. And then I put the radius on the bottom, which made the ends of those scallops on a couple of the braces too thin, so I had to remake them. And I'm just cutting out notches here for the back braces to go onto the back. This is a go bar deck. The yellow bars are called go bars. They're just stiff pieces of fiberglass. There's a platform up above that you can't see where the go bars press against, and basically just push against that and then the brace to put pressure onto the braces. Shaping the braces, not too difficult to do on the back. It's still kind of an enigmatic process to me, voicing, more so the top. The back is not really much to it really, but the top is more kind of an enigma to me of what I'm actually doing. I know what I'm doing, but don't know what I'm doing, if you know what I mean. Here I'm just kind of notching out for the back braces to fit into the kerfs, or the kerfed linings, I should say. And I've got to cut away some of this back reinforcement strip so that the back will sit flush against the head block and the tail block. That's what I'm doing here. And this is a pretty stressful step. You try to move quickly, but you're trying to be precise at the same time. You've got to get the glue on there. And you know, once the glue goes down, you're on a time crunch to get the top on there before the glue starts to set up too much. And then making sure that the braces actually fit in there while you're doing the glue up. So to get done with this step is a pretty good feeling to look at it when you get done. This is a resin pin blank, and I decided to use it to make a rosette. I made a segmented rosette on my second guitar build out of some Paduke wood. This one I decided to go ahead and try something a little different. I like the design of these. I got these from Crosscut Creations. I'll put a link to his website and YouTube channel in the description box below. But I liked all the different colors, and I'm just kind of wiping it down with some mineral spirits here to get an idea of what it's going to look like. And that is just an ebony piece there at the bottom, a black ebony piece. I don't know why, just for accent. So now I'm cutting out the channel to put the rosette in. This is another kind of stressful step. I decided to use epoxy to glue it in because I wasn't sure how woodworking glue would hold the resin down. It seemed to work out okay. I'm using a big Bowflex weight to clamp down on it. I installed some white, black, white purfling all around the edges. You can see there. And here I'm cutting out the sound hole, which is yet another stressful step. There are so many stressful steps in a guitar build. It's insane, but somehow you make it through. I think that's why at the end of the build, it's so much of a fulfilling feeling because you've accomplished something like this where so many steps were so stressful to get done, and to be at the end of it just makes you feel so good. Didn't really decide that I needed to show every step of gluing down the soundboard bracing, but there you go. So quick shot of me shaping the braces. And here it is already voiced as good as I know how to do it, okay? On my first guitar build, I had a sticky back printer label that I just wrote on. My second guitar build did not have a label. So I decided to take a piece of scrapbook paper and just write on it. That's my label for this guitar. I used some spray adhesive to glue it down. I don't know if you can see, but on the inside of this guitar, I did do a coat of shellac, a wash coat, which is something I did on my second guitar too. It's just what I see a lot of builders doing on Instagram. If you've not been on Instagram and looked at all the custom builders that they have on there, boutique guitar builders, custom guitar builders, high-end guitar builders, there's so much inspiration on Instagram. I can't even name them all, but there's a lot of them. And a lot of them do this. They put shellac on the inside of the guitar. So the back is on, and now you got to put the top. So just still another stressful part of the build. Yet at the end of it, it's a really good feeling. I used a piece of leather there to help protect the wood from denting. And I'm just using cauls all the way around, just random pieces of wood, so that the go bars don't press too hard on the one spot. I had a couple of little dents in my first guitar build where I didn't use the cauls, and I had a feeling they were from where the go bars were pressing down really hard. Here's a shot of the top and the back flushed up to the sides. Decided to take it outside because the lighting outside is much better than in my shop. Here I'm flattening out the sides to get ready for this step, which is cutting the binding channels. If you don't flatten out the sides before you do it, you'll have undulations in your binding channels if there's any undulations in the side. I know that because I forgot to flatten the sides of my second guitar build, and I had those undulations in it. So I decided to use super glue on this guitar build. I used yellow glue on my first guitar build, super glue on my second guitar build. It's a lot less stressful setting up for the super glue method, but I think that the wood glue, the yellow glue, makes the binding swell a little bit and helps fill in gaps. So I had a few gaps that I'll have to fill in, and had the same issue on my second guitar build as well. Off camera, I installed a wedge using the same Rosette material in the bottom. Well, it's not a wedge, it's just an end graft, but to cover up that joint where the two sides come together in the lower bout. I think it came out okay. It was my first time trying this, and I put some black, white, black purfling around it just to kind of make it stand out a little bit. And that's koa binding. If I didn't say it before, I got it from Allied Luthery, yet another Luthery supply company I'll put a link to in the description. It looks really good with some mineral spirits on it, as you see here. I made that little 90-degree fence to clamp to my oscillating spindle sander so that I can run my headstock through it to make the volute on the back. I'm gluing on the headstock here, and I'm using a couple of veneers and then a thicker headpiece. And this time I actually used a couple of toothpicks to keep everything aligned. You see those toothpicks I have in there, and it was so much easier. If you're ever going to glue a headstock on, use the toothpicks or whatever you want to use. Drill 2 holes that fit 2 dowels or whatever. It was so much less stress doing it this way. If you don't use the toothpicks or dowels or whatever you use, the head plate is sliding all over the place and you're trying to keep it in place while you're putting clamps on. It's pretty stressful. There I was flushing up the headstock to the side of the neck, and here I'm cutting off where the nut will go at the end of the headstock. You cut almost all the way through down, and then you use your chisel to get the rest of it off of there. Definitely don't want to cut into the neck. And here's a finished shot of this part. The body is made, the neck is mostly made, and part 2 will continue on until the end of the guitar build. Thanks for watching.